Hello and welcome to another 2000 AD themed edition of Life of Die. I'm your regular host Gordon and I'm joined once again by fellow 2000 AD fanatic Allan. Hi Allan, how you doing?
How you doing, Gordon? Nice to hear from you again.
Absolutely, and it's good to have you back on the show. So this is now the third of our Strontium Dog podcasts, and the last time we were talking about general tactics and some little notes about the rules and so on. So I thought this podcast we would have a closer look at the villains, specifically the outlaws they're called in this. There are some other villainous characters who are Strontium Dog agents, but we're really specifically looking at the outlaws. So we thought for the listeners at home who have the Strontium Dog game, we'll probably go through these, well we will go through these in order. So you're looking at page 61 in your rulebook, and we'll take you right through those, and at the end of it we'll also maybe have a few extras in there to talk about some other characters as well as the ones that are in the core book. So let's just get straight into it, Allan. I think you'll take the lead in these because you've been playing it recently, obviously with your Strontium Dog series, The Killing. I hope everybody's enjoying that and following it because it's absolutely epic. So yeah, you've got the kind of most recent play experience with them.
Yep.
On my blog, and this is one of the things, I'll drop some of the links for this with the podcast. I think it was about 2 years ago, I'd basically went and analysed every single one of these characters, so I'll chip in along with what you're saying and I'll see if it agrees with my more analytical rather than play-based. Well, I played loads of it at the time to arrive at a lot of these conclusions, but yeah, you're the one that's definitely much more up and playing these recently. So, shall we start with the main bad guy, Max Bubba?
Yep. And what a bad guy he is. He is a true great rival for Johnny Alpha, I feel. I've noticed that with playing him. I mean, he's got the bazooka, obviously the big bazooka-like weapon, which is aimed fire only. But the thing that I think gives him an advantage is the fact he's also got a custom hand blaster, which is high power. Mm-hmm. As well as having a long barrel. So there's no minus modifier when he's trying to hit at long range. And the fact he's got a gunfighter is phenomenal. And part of me kind of toils with the fact, I mean, he has 18 notoriety. I suppose he is very expensive. One of the more expensive characters. But
yeah, second only to Johnny Alpha.
Aye, I was like, oh, is he a bit overpowered? And it's purely because of that custom hand blaster, because he's got the gunfighter role and he can swap between his bazooka and his custom. Obviously, the bazooka, it's a double action to fire that, so that's a hindrance. But the fact that he can utilise, alright, he might not be able to shoot the bazooka, but he could be in the open and he could get hit by an enemy, and he could utilise his gunfighter skill and shoot right back with that custom hand blaster for no penalty at all. And the fact it's high power and also it's no got the long range modifier makes him extremely powerful. And I have noticed it when he's been getting played. His skills, as well as the gunfighter, the schemer. I mean, obviously I do things a bit differently with my campaign, but how the schemer works is they get 2 chicanery cards, and even in standard play it would mean he can draw an extra chicanery card, and because the chicanery cards can play such a big part in any Strontium Dog game, it is such a great skill to have.
Yeah, getting that extra chicanery cards is massive, definitely. I mean, I like Johnny slightly better just because, well, maybe it's just because I like the character better, but getting 4 armory cards I think is really good, that equipped, and that's basically his equivalent of it. But yeah, having 4 chicanery cards is brilliant, so that's great fun. And I agree with you about the most of the time you'll be using that bazooka and you can just, flip into gunfighter mode using the pistol. I agree that it feels slightly gamey, but it's definitely the way it is in the rules. It's not like we're cheating in any way or anything like that. We're not pulling a fast one. That is how he works, basically. That he's got the bazooka, which you can use. The other thing just to mention about the bazooka, when you fire it, even though it's a named fire action, one of the things I missed at the very start of it was that I thought because it was aimed fire that you still get that 2 dice bonus, which you could either put into the shoot, and you don't.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah,
exactly. You spend a double action, which is an aim fire, but it's your basic shoot. Although it does have power 5, and it also has a burst template thing, so it's really, really powerful. And then yeah, when you start shooting back at him, then he's able to activate that gunfire. So yeah, you should have some nice gunfights with Johnny with him. But yeah, he's definitely by far and away he's the most powerful of the outlaws, and his cost reflects that. He's even more expensive than Wolf. And so far as my own tactics for playing Bubba are concerned, that, you know, obviously he's a bit, even though he's menacing, he's a bit of a kind of cowardly character in the strip, and I think that that's nicely reflected in the fact, obviously, what you mentioned, the schemer card that gives you that bonus chicanery card, and also he's the snake ability.
That's brilliant.
Which allows him to, you know, swap places with. I think it's equivalent of what Wolf does with Johnny, that he throws himself in the way. Whereas, he can switch places with a friendly model.
It's like he uses somebody as a body shield.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just brilliant.
So I think it's quite good that you can play him in a fairly cowardly way. So yeah, my tactics are, you know, to be defensive and unsporting.
Aye.
You get that great range in the Bazooka, 40 range, which nothing else comes close to that in the game. So set him up the back, fire away with the Bazooka. Have we'll come on to them in a wee second. Well, let's just crack on, because his gang help him out a little here. So you've got Impetigo Jones, who I don't find particularly great, personally speaking, but I tend to use him basically as a foil for Bubba for that the snake ability.
Aye.
The other thing I probably wouldn't, I think at the time I did it a lot. I used to go for broke a lot with Max Bubba, because firing the Bazooka twice in a single turn is pretty mega. But I think these days I wouldn't, because the danger is if you pin if you fail the go for broke, pin yourself, then fail the kill test next turn, you won't get to fire the Bazooka. So I think these days I would probably just sit him back there, activate once a turn. It leaves the gunfighter open. Maybe you could go for it in turn one if nobody's anywhere near you. You can afford to take the chance. But I think if the enemies were kind of closing in on me, I think I would leave him not go for broke, because I've got the gunfighter to respond with.
That's exactly what I would do. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So he's all about self-preservation, and that's exactly how you should.
I mean, that gunfighter, the fact he's got that gunfighter, as you're saying, I've noticed it with quite a lot of characters that's got gunfighter. I've found myself initially going for broke if they were like Starship players, and then the more I've played the game, I'm thinking, no, that gunfighter, especially if somebody's got a high resist or evade, in which there's a very high chance that they're going to get a special result to retaliate. I mean, like Bubba here, he's 2 evade, it's fantastic, and he's got the tough resist. And if he's in cover, he's getting higher resist. You know, he's getting more dice to potentially roll that individual special that he needs. So I'm exactly the same. The more games I've played with him, to be honest with you, the less I've used his Bazooka, I've thought to myself, I'll just rely on that old long-barreled custom hand blaster, because it is pretty deadly. The fact it's high power and all, so it gives you the 4 dice in power rather than the standard 3, is phenomenal.
Yeah, but it is fun firing off the Bazooka, though, that's the thing.
Oh, it is great. It is great. I've noticed that quite a lot in the instance when he just was sitting back in, I think it was about 17, and sending shell after shell into the med bay, the Creeler guy in there, Fitzroyce, and I thought it was excellent, because he couldn't even shoot back because he didn't have the range to retaliate, because he's just sitting in the sidelines just sending shell after shell. So it is great. I must admit, I've found that myself. There's this kind of godlike complex he feel he gets, just sitting back and just sending missile after missile at an enemy.
So getting back into Impetigo Jones, one of the reasons I quite like having him as a foil to Max Bubba is that he's got a really high resist.
Oh, he's fantastic, yeah.
And so when he's doing that the snake, it means that hopefully Impetigo is going to soak up a lot before he can be defeated himself, before the opponent can really get anywhere near Max Bubba. And yeah, his weapon's okay. It's relatively short range. That's probably, I suppose, the danger, because it's got the splitter on it. It reduces you to 16 range. And just while we're mentioning that, Lowdown of Fee and Skull, the two of those, the range on them is incorrect. It should be 24 range. The range is correct for Impetigo Jones and Brute Mosley, because they've got the splitter, which reduces the range by 8, and it also means that their modifier is just 0 at long range. Whereas the other two are -1 because they don't have the splitter, but they do they can fire 24 instead of 16. So it's a little typo that's on both the rule book and the cards. So just watch out for that with Lowdown and Skull. Are you pretty much the same, Alan?
Well, what I've noticed with Impetigo is what I like to do with him is because he's got that high resist. I mean, to me, you've got to get him in close for him to be really effective because his weapon has not got the best range. But getting him, using him to advance and staying in cover as much as possible. That means if he's taking hits, because he's got the high resist, and if he is in heavy cover, he'll be rolling 6 dice resist. There's a very good chance he's going to shake off damage there. And plus the fact, if he is able to get in the within 8, he's getting that +3 modifier. So I think he's quite good. Oh, fair enough, his move is -1 as a kind of foil because of the disease skin that he's got. He's got obviously the +1 resist because he's tougher, he's scaly skin, but he's got minus that one move. But I felt that it's not really affected him because if you do a sprint action, you're getting the extra D6 anyway. So normally that allows him to get in close enough to a target and then utilise his +3 short range bonus. So I think he's like a pleb, shall we say, but he's got his own wee kind of perks, which I felt he's quite a good lieutenant to Bubba. Obviously, no a patch on Bubba himself, but I can understand why you would use that tactic where, using him as basically Bubba's body shield because he has got that high resist. Even tougher than Big Brute, and Brute is obviously a bigger looking guy, but he's just tougher because obviously he's got the kind of scaly skin mutation.
Actually, if you were playing Impetigo more offensive, then I think Lowdown would be the best one to then kind of guard Bubba, as it were, especially if he's both in cover, because his resist is 3, but he gets a +1 to that when he's in cover, and that's on top of whatever cover he's, if he's in hard cover, he basically gets +3 overall. So he would then, if you were going to use it in Impetigo in a more offensive role, Lowdown probably is the better one actually, because he, as I say, with that typo, he has 24 range on his Stormer,
Aye.
which means when you sit in camping with Bubba at the back of the board, then you want somebody that's got a bit better range. So he probably has a better fit, especially if you've got the cover. So I suppose it comes down to, do you have cover, do you not have cover for both of them? And in which case I might, if it was a little cover, I might go with Impetigo as a kind of bodyguard. But
it'll probably be Skull. He'll be the one that I would put in the most in harm's way. But the one good thing that Skull's the most expendable for me in the group. But as I say, sometimes he's no bad with that old Power 4 Stormer.
And you can always use an aimed fire action, and take the bonus into your shoot if you're wanting to land it. If you want to be a bit more sure about it. Yeah, it's always an option. So particularly when you've got a low shoot.
Funnily enough, I think I used that with Skull. Skull didn't really feature much in the campaign, but he did wound one of the Howlers right away by doing that very tactic. Aimed action, putting his extra die onto hitting, and he did do some damage. He hurt the guy he was going for. So that's a perfect example of how to play him.
Yep. So they're basically, I think as a group, they're actually kind of best sitting back and trying to plug away at whoever they're up against. Brute, and yeah, I suppose Impetigo as well, maybe you can afford to kind of bring them forward, and if you can get them into that 8 inches with their guns, that helps them a lot, because they get the +3 to it, I think it is. So to me, they're kind of more shooty, that gang. I certainly wouldn't want Brute, even though he's quite good in close combat, he wouldn't be a match for the likes of Middenface or Wolf, so I would be pretty reluctant to throw him in against those guys. But anyway, shall we move on to Bubo and the bad boys?
Yeah.
So what do you think of them?
I love him. The thing that I've found is great with these, not just so much Bubo, but even just the bad boys in general. See, having that more extra movement for every time they move, they get an extra D6 every time. Say they spent 2 move actions, right? They get an extra D6 every time they move. And I'm like, that is absolutely phenomenal for getting them across the board. And what's key is, all right, they're not that good shooting, but they've got long barrel blasters, so they've not got any minus modifiers on their blasters, so they're always going to have that one die. And plus, if you get them in close, if you're able to charge these guys in close to an enemy, you just rely on your fight, because they've got 3 + 1 fight. First, it took me a while to understand that, the concept of the brackets, the +1s and brackets and stuff, and then I realised if one of them, say, had a grenade and was thrown it, they would only be rolling 3 die for their fight, because it's obviously your fight stat you use if you're throwing a bomb weapon. But in their actual fight, they get 4 die, and that's why they've differentiated between the brackets and the out of the brackets for certain models. But I've really enjoyed playing these guys. Bubo didn't particularly last long, spoilers, in the campaign, but there was a quite wee interesting gunfight that was going on with him and his opponent and his bout. But I see having the Born to Ride skills, I say, is fantastic.
Yeah, it means they never fall off.
Aye, that as well, but primarily they get that extra D6 roll anytime because they've got the Mork. And the fact is that they can never fall off the mount. Mount is brilliant as well. Yeah, I've never really used Zap the Saps. I've never really had an opportunity to use that.
Yeah, it's really great. It's tricky because you've kind of got to kind of work it out how you're going to do that. I did find that was one. It took a bit of thinking about because it's what for anybody that's not familiar. Basically, when Bubo activates, he can perform a single action to remove D3 action chips from bad boys within 6 inches and return those chips to the bag. So what I was kind of trying to work out was, right, so in turn 1, I basically wanted to move him to a certain point. The bad boys then follow him. Then in turn 2, see, that's what I mean. It's really hard to get them to kind of chain up that they've activated, and then you're in 6 inches of them to then remove it. So yeah, it's really, really tricky, but it's quite good when you actually get it. But it's trying to get...
It's quite powerful if you get it. But as you're saying, because a tactic you would do is like you could use flanking manoeuvres because they've got so much speed, the bad boys. What I would probably do is split them up and get them across the board so that they're coming at a target from multiple angles to get them in close. So if they're coming at a target from multiple angles, that character, their enemy, is going to be having to turn to choose a target, probably go for the strongest target, try to shoot, but then that'll mean that their back arc's potentially exposed to somebody else coming in for the flank, So that tactic, I would probably find the Zap the Saps would go against how I would standard play the guys, because obviously the bad boys have got to be within 6 inches, isn't it? Yeah, 6 inches of Bubo for it to be effective, for it to work.
Yeah, that is a tricky part because I think in actual practice now, I'm thinking back in the games where I used them, what was happening was it didn't really come into play until such a time as we were getting involved in close combat and they were relatively close by. So they would have done they'd done fights that turn. So when you're actually on the move, it's hard to use. But yeah, tactically for me, it's a real no-brainer for me to like how to play them. Sprint, 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 because you'll get that -1 for them to hit you. Although, don't you get a +1 to hit mounted models? So it kind of...
Yeah, that is something that I've noticed. I think I've kind of forgot that a couple of times, but you get that because they're mounted. Any mounted model, you get a +1 to hit. So it's the same as I think anybody in a vehicle as well. You get a +1 to hit the vehicle.
That's right. In which case, it's even more important that you do sprint actions at the start. The thing that, like you said about the move, so a sprint action in this, you would move 6 plus D6 for your first move.
Yep.
Same again for your second, and then you're getting another D6.
Yes, exactly.
So you can completely move from one end of the board to the other, sometimes depending on your luck. And the sprint at least takes that disadvantage away that enemies have a +1 to hit you. And then, like you mentioned, Allan, their shoot is really, really poor. So it's a fight. I mean, they basically get 4 attack dice, which is certainly 4 is really, really powerful in close combat. Also, the resist is better in close combat because they get +1 resist because of their fur. They're hairy in close combat. Obviously, the disadvantage is if you've got a flame weapon against them, that's not going to be so. They'll go up like a candle.
This happens to one of the howlers in one of the strips, if I remember right, gets set on fire.
Yeah. The bad boys themselves, their stats, as far as I can tell, are virtually identical. The only difference being that Bubo's got cool 4 and they've got cool 3, which means they're normal characters and he's special. So they're really, really powerful. So I think they're great characters. I think
they're great, they're brilliant. What I would do is if I was an opponent going up against them, I would actually make sure that there was a lot of heavy cover and dense cover on the dense terrain rather than the board, because obviously that would hinder their using their move action a lot, because they would need to perpetually turn because you can't sprint. You can move over that, but if you were performing a sprint action, then you can't perform a sprint action over dense cover, anything over an inch.
Yeah.
So it would be a good tactic to make sure that, a wee bit more cover, a wee bit more terrain on that board, please. If you were going up against an opponent with them. But they are very powerful, and I've noticed that. I mean, even characters in mine, Volo, I mean, he's a standard bad boy, and I just love him because he's just... I love writing the pattern in the killing, but I've really noticed that as a standard bad boy, they are still very, very strong.
Yeah.
So but if you utilise their talents, shall we say.
Yeah. And I think we might have touched upon this in the last episode about the general tactics, but I would always use 2 fight actions rather than a charge.
Oh, definitely.
The only time I would use a charge is if you couldn't make it for the range, basically. That's the only time I would use the charge, but other than that, I would be double fighting because they're good enough that they can dish out the damage, as it were. So yeah, I tend to coordinate the attacks as well. Try and hit one character or 2 characters at most with the 3 of them, and then that way take them down as quickly as possible. You hopefully be able to use that ability if they're all close by and they're all in close combat, fight several times in one go, or twice in one go for the bad boys. And then if you can pick off one straight away, then your opponent is in a bind because they're going to have to struggle to keep you, to put you down. So yeah, I think they're really, really fun, great characters, quite powerful as well. So glad we agree on that one. We agree on probably most of these.
Yeah, definitely.
Shall we move on to who's next then? Darkus.
Yep.
I've always kind of thought the design of Darkus and the Howlers is kind of very similar to Bubo and the Bad Boys. If they didn't have that Born to Ride, I would use them as the kind of like walking version.
They're the same species. I've found Darkus, he's been quite a strong model. And again, it's because of the gunfighter and the long barrel and his weapon that I've basically felt. His stats is great as well. You're talking about he's got free resist and he's got the plus and minus for that. The only bad thing is if you were going up against an enemy, it's got a flame weapon that would really, really be dodgy. But I think he's a relatively strong model. Not as strong as Bubo because he's obviously got the mount, but he shoots better. So you've not got that hindrance. So, I mean, his shoot's actually pretty good. It's one of the higher ones. It's shoot free. And then he's obviously got a bonus of +1 in short range. But again, it's because he's got that long barrel and a blaster. He doesn't suffer the minus for long range, which I think is really, really good for him. I mean, what is he? 13 notoriety. So he's quite one of the higher ones. One of the higher guys. But as gunfighter...
Yeah, I mean, I think that gunfighter is really his kind of key ability that he's got. I think that's really powerful. Like, we always think the gunfighter's powerful. It's great. So far as his other 2 abilities, I mean, the Dead Better Less Trouble, I think, is a thematically fun. Doesn't really affect the game too much. He just can't try to subdue models and never use his stun weapons, which is more fun than helpful, if I would put it that way. And also the Expert Tracker, which I quite like because he gets the drop on opponents. And basically, if he's leader, he's always the protagonist. I don't really feel that affects it too much, the game.
It doesn't really, no.
So, yeah, I didn't find him the most helpful abilities in the world, but he's still powerful because, like you say, he's got decent range, no reduction, and he's got the gunfighter. So, yeah, those are pretty good. Howlers themselves.
No bad, yeah.
Yeah, they're fine. They're fine. They're not really anything to write home about. Yeah, you probably want them in kind of... Again, I think the Stormer range wrong in that. Just have a look at it because it's not got the adjustment.
Yeah. See, I think whenever I use them, I use the long barreled hand blaster. I think that is the option they can have. It's either or. I think in their card.
I'm just looking at the card. It's not an either or. It seems to be costed in.
So you basically get 2 that you could use then.
Yeah, you can split between the 2 of them. So you could definitely use a Stormer, which should be 24 range. So I would use that between 16 and 24. Then flip to the long barrel hand blaster.
So they're pretty good then, the fact they've got 2 weapons. That is something I've never really noticed about them. I think it's primarily when I played them, it's been in the killing, and in that it's like you're only supposed to have a certain amount of weapons, and I've just misread that card. Rather than give them 2 weapons, I gave them a blaster and the carving knife, which, again, they haven't got the carving knife here. Have they got the carving knife in their card?
No, it's the 2 weapons. It's just the same as it is in the book. So you don't really, it doesn't really come into play that. And I'm just noticing as well, what I was saying there about the long range with the Stormer, and then switching to the long barrel. Once you get within 8, I would then switch back to the Stormer again. Because you have +2, so yeah, that's...
+2, yeah, aye. They're pretty good. That's what I like about it. It's been very well thought out. Even the plebby guys, you're notoriety 6, so they're kind of standard like your Max Bubba's gang, but they've got the wee things. The fact is they've got 2 weapons they can swap between is what gives them a sense of uniqueness. So I think they're pretty good. They're pretty good now. I'm seeing them in a new light now.
So Moving on then.
Billy Joe. Billy Joe, I've no really a lot of experience in, but the thing is, Billy Joe is he's got no ranged weapons at all. So depending on the scenario, you've really got to be careful with him because he's got high fight, but getting in close, he relies solely on close combat attacks.
Yep.
What I have noticed and I have used with him is his brawler ability. I've used that. However, there was a wee bit of rules clarification that we needed with that, and it was if you evade, you choose to evade. You can't choose to evade and move out of range because you basically move yourself out of close combat range. So if you're out of close combat range, utilising that 3-inch move that you can utilise if you've made a successful evade, you can't then hit back the target that you've been hitting. It's a case of either or. I think that was cleared up by Andy, wasn't it?
I think it was.
It's a case of either or. So if you roll that special on an evade roll, you can choose to stand your ground and fight back. However, if you do, then you're subject to the brawler rules, whereas your opponent can hit you. Right? The only thing you're able to do is respond to the attack that your opponent's made in you. And I have basically utilised that. The duelist here has got, by wielding 2 close combat weapons, Billy Joe scores a hit with close combat attacks on both special and hit results, which is pretty cool. I mean, if Billy Joe rolls any special results on a close combat attack, he may move up to 3 inches after the hit has been resolved. That's pretty cool. But I think I've never had a chance to utilise that, or if I have, I've maybe forgot to do it.
He's actually one of the most complex. It took me quite a while, and I've actually written it out. So I'm just going to run through this for them that's listening. Again, there'll be links to this underneath the video on YouTube. So when you're playing Billy Joe, when he instigates a close combat attack with his las whips, remember that they've got 3-inch range. So this means that if you keep him more than an inch away from an enemy, you can conduct a close combat attack with him, but not actually be engaged with the enemy. And that would be more helpful if you were up against somebody like Wolf or Middenface, where they've got Brawler. So if you were using that at 3 inches, they can't instigate Brawler back at you.
Aye, that is phenomenal. I've totally missed that. And like I just said to the other Howlers, I'm seeing him in a whole new light tactically there. And it's very good because it reflects the actual appearance of Billy Joe in the Star-Lord original strip, because he's dancing rings around Johnny when he's fighting him with the las whips because he's that good with him. So I could just picture a model doing that, the Billy Joe model doing that on the table, getting in close to either Wolf or Middenface, but no so close that they're able to retaliate, getting a successful hit, utilising the special and then moving away. You know what I mean? Maybe even moving round so that he gets into his back arc.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if you get another hit, say with like another action, and you hit them in their back arc, they're going to be down a resist.
Yep.
You know, for getting hit in their back arc, as well as the special for the las whip has got the -1 resist as it is.
I'm going to come on to that. So when you're rolling to hit in close combat, because he's got the 2 las whips, he gains +1 in his rolls to hit, which gives him 5 combat dice because he's got a fight of 4. That gives him a +1. Each one of these dice that you're rolling, because he's got this duelist skill, if you roll either a special or a hit, it counts as a hit, which means he's got a 67% chance of a hit with each dice rather than the usual 50%. And on top of that, if any of those came up with the special result, you can move an extra 3 inches after the attack has been resolved, which is about dancing around the guys like you're talking about. Then, once you've got past that stage, you've got the calculating damage. So, because he's dual wielding the close combat weapons, Billy Joe can only inflict damage with one weapon. So that means that he rolls his fight -1 for his las whip, plus any other modifiers. So if he was charging, you get a +1 to that. You've got to note that the duelist special rule does not apply when calculating damage. In other words, special results do not count in this section. And the last thing is the target resisting damage. The defending model usually gets +1 resist against 2 close combat weapons, but this is cancelled out by the -1 to resist special roll for his las whips. So it's pretty complex, and if you want to, I know that was a lot just to unload there in a podcast. So as I said, have a look at the blog post that I'll drop in the links on YouTube for that. So it's definitely the hardest of all the characters for me to have got my head round to is exactly how to use him. But certainly when he uses that las whip, keep him at range, and it stops Middenface and Wolf retaliating if you're not actually engaged in close combat. And again, he's pretty similar in terms of tactics to what I was talking about with Bibbo and the Bad Boys. Sprint, 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 get in there and fight, and use double fight actions to, and as I say, you don't try and keep them at range so that you can just basically knock 7 bells out of them, and and yeah, that's how it'll get the better of pretty much Mdels in the game. So he's completely useless in terms of ranged weaponry, so get whipping.
He has actually still got a shoot stat, but he can't utilise it because he's not even got like a basic hand blaster, which he could have been given because I think the first one of them is free anyway, but basically he just utilises the whips all the time. But I'm actually a bit hanged how maybe they're thinking of like custom games. If you decide to give him a blaster in a custom game,
I suppose you can pick up weapons as well.
Yeah, that's right. You can.
So yeah, I think that'll be the reason why it's in there. And sorry, the one thing I didn't mention was because he's got that faces on either side of his head, he has no back fire arc, so he's got a 360 degree front fire arc.
That's brilliant as well. That is good. I like that.
So that's quite fun. Steel Creek
I think's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I really like about Steel Creek is if you play Steel Creek, like how his personality wasn't a killing, he's a brilliant model because he's got the resist 5. And if you keep him in you're able to get him to an elevated position with cover. And if that's heavy cover he's getting extra 2 dice onto that as well. Plus he has the fire pack, which, alright, it's aimed fire only and it's a double action to fire it. But the range in that thing, the fact is even on long range it's 18, which isn't brilliant, but it's a +1 modifier to hit.
Yeah, and 18's more than most. Stormers are the only ones that are in the bazooka, but yeah, most of the weapons are 16.
In Steel Creek, his basic shoot is free. So you're talking about if he's shooting at a long range target that's coming in to try and kill him, he's in heavy cover, so he's got that resist. He's pretty impregnable. And if he was to shoot back, even at long range, he's getting 4 die to do it.
And at short range, he gets +4 modifier, which is insane. 7 dice to attack. So yeah,
and it's the fact that it's an aimed fire only weapon, fair enough, but it's a blast 3 inch, so it could hit multiple enemies in that blast 3 inch template, the radius. Plus, they get absolutely no cover bonus because flame weapons negate any cover bonus that a hit target would get. I think he's phenomenal, and I've used him to good effect in the tournament, which his second bout's coming up, shall we say. But
I liked in the first one he was in the tower.
All I'll say is that Steel Creek by nature seeks out the best cover, the best position to play the percentages as he does, because that's how he was in the killing, and that's how I've chosen to play him. And I've really seen it firsthand that if you play him that way, he's such a powerful opponent. If you've got to winkle him out of his cover, because he's got that high resist, plus he's also got the emergency protocols, it means if he's hit, it's like hunker down. He can totally remove all of his injury markers.
Yeah, usually there's always, you can never get rid of all. There's always one if you've been injured a couple of times, but for him, you can get rid of all of them.
It's the equivalent of having a med pack.
I would just say about the med pack, the big difference is that the med pack just automatically removes all the injury markers. He's still got to roll
he's still got to roll, yeah.
Just in case somebody starts playing it wrong because of what we said. But I mean, I'm curious to know, would you still go for broke with him? Because to me, obviously, he's useless if you can't activate him. So would you still take the chance?
See, to be honest with you, I have done it in the past, and I think it's paid off, but a couple of times I've regretted it because exactly what you're saying, he's been pinned because I failed it. I went to the next turn and he couldn't remove the pin because he failed the pin roll, and then that meant he's got absolutely no other weapon. So it is, to be honest with you, it would need to be extenuating circumstances for me to use go for broke with him because he becomes just a big lump of tin. You can't do anything with him. You can't, if you're playing him the tactic that he's staying in cover and he's staying away from opponents, you can't even get in close to use the concealed blade. But I learned that the hard way, shall we say, in a couple of bouts that I played, a couple of games that I played with him. The only time I would maybe use it is if he got a successful hit. Say he fired an exposed target and he got a successful hit. Well, it doesn't even need to be exposed because cover doesn't matter. And he maybe hadn't killed the target. I would potentially risk it to be able to finish the target off, potentially, but it would purely depend on the abilities of the opponent, because if he had managed to hit the opponent and wound him, then the stats would be negated anyway. You know, like maybe his full shoot would be taken off. It would be purely on the circumstances of the opponent that was coming for him. But it's good to have the option to do it. But like I say, you need to be very careful with using him.
Yeah, as we talked about before, Cool 4 is basically a coin toss as to whether you're going to get it back into the bag. So I'm a lot more wary now that I'm aware of the percentages on that, I have to say.
The difference is with like Bubba, as you were saying, is he's all right, he's got a double action weapon, but he's got that long barrel blaster that he can fall back in. And that's what the difference is. Steel Krieg hasn't got any other ranged weapon other than that fire pack. So that's why I think you're right. Very extenuating circumstances to use Go for Broke with him. But as I say, I think I have used it about 16, I think it was, and I think it was a bit of a disaster for him. I think he got pinned a couple of times with it. But all in though, I love playing Steel Krieg because he's a very thematic model. How his stats, it's total genius how his stats has been planned by Andy and was it Gav as well?
Gav, yep.
That's put this together because it's all so obvious that they're true fans of the Killing strip. Because, as I say, I play him that way, and he's very, very strong if you play him that way. The kind of hang back, play the percentages model.
And he's also analytical, which basically means opposing players draw one less chicanery card than they usually would. I actually find if you take Steel Krieg along with Max Bubba, that's quite a good tactic because it means that you'll start the game with 4 chicanery cards, and the opponent, unless he's got a similar model, will only start with 2, which is a big advantage before you even start the game. Probably the biggest problem with Steel Krieg is he's got no evade, which makes him really vulnerable to the T weapons. You still get a +1. Now, if somebody throws a time bomb, you automatically get 1 evade, but Steel Krieg himself would admit that's only a 16.67% chance of escape.
Aye. You fell foul of it. I can remember the one that you did. There was a time trap you got caught in, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The one that you done a vid for.
Yeah, I think I think at that stage I didn't appreciate the fact that I get the +1. I think I'd missed that.
That's right. Aye.
He still would have failed anyway. The 5 out of 6 chance of failing. Anyway, Cancer. What do you think of him?
Cancer. I love playing him. I love purely because of the halogen that gives him that +3 bonus. So you're talking about he's already got 1 evade, but with that +3 bonus to that evade, he's amazing. And how obviously how certain things worked out when I've been playing him. If he ends up with a chameleon cloak,
yeah,
he's getting +5 evade. All right, he's not that good when it comes to shoot, but his quality hand blaster that he's got it's a blister. So it's got the flame effect, which basically means it negates, again, just like Steel Krieg, negates any effect of cover that a target will have. His hook hand, all right, it's no much to write home about, but it's still, it's a close combat weapon, and his fight and his shoot's kind of basic. The one hindrance that I think that he's got is his moves. Not a lot. It's 4 because he's a behemoth, isn't he? I think that's elephant. I can't even say that.
Elephantine. Maybe.
Thank you for that. Thank you. But that's his basically his
biology, really.
Aye, and it's basically sacrifice for the other things that he's got. But even then, I don't think it's a lot of a sacrifice. I think that he's a very powerful bad guy. Also, with that resist 4, because he also obviously is
huge.
I'm not saying that word again. He's huge. Behemoth will call him. But he's got that extra, so he's got resist 4. So I found he's been very strong whenever I played him. That's all I'm saying.
Again, he gets an extra chicanery card if he's your leader. I should be saying that, by the way, all these ones where it's like bonus chicanery cards, it's only if they're the leader, so it's not like if you took all of these and...
Aye, if they were in a gang, you're going to get that, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that's quite... I totally agree with you about the halogen, that's how it's pronounced, or halogen, for the bonus to evade, but he's got the mind warp, which is a double action, which is pretty costly. Obviously, that's your whole turn. But the target takes a cool test, and if he fails it, you can take a single action with the enemy model. And even if they fail it, the enemy model's pinned at least. So That's very similar to the thing that Johnny Alpha does.
And what I love about that is if you're one of your opponents who's just went on Overwatch, it's fantastic to use that if it suits you, because at the very least you know that you're going to be able to pin him. So that means if an opponent's pinned, they automatically lose Overwatch. So it's a way just to completely waste that guy's move.
That's clever. I never really thought of that.
Aye. And again, I missed that at first, I think. Yeah, if somebody's injured, stunned, or pinned, they automatically lose on Overwatch. So that's a phenomenal way. You've just wasted your entire move there. Having said that, it is too, double action to use it.
Yeah, but if that comes off for you as well, that you basically activate one of your enemy models to shoot another one of their allies, that's really powerful. So,
aye,
particularly if they've got they can backshot them or something like that, that would be better. So, yeah, he's a great character, definitely. So, shall we try and squeeze in a few extra bonuses? Because that's obviously all the outlaws that are in the basic book. I thought I'd maybe mention about the Creelers just because they're a set that came out very late on. They're pretty much one of the last ones, along with the Mutant Generals. Maybe talk about the Mutant Generals next episode. But the Creelers, I suppose the simplest thing to say is that you could basically get 3 different cards that come with them. You've got the kind of bog standard soldiers, you've got an officer, and you've got Nelson Creelman as he's listed there, or Nelson Bunker Creelman as I like to call him, MBK.
Aye.
Obviously the soldiers, you see them like the muties cutting through them quite easily in the strips, so they're pretty poor. They're really just very basic characters. They don't really do anything. There's nothing exciting to report home about. The Keeler's officer, if he's a leader, you get an extra armory card. The thing about them is they're a bit better. They're decent characters. They're all pretty much stats 3. And the one disadvantage to me about the Keeler's officer, if you're bringing Keelman to the table, there's no real reason for you to bother with the Keeler's officer. You probably just want to take them all as soldiers. So I've come up with something to fix that. We'll get to it in a minute. The other thing is if you take Creelman as a leader, instead of getting that equipped thing that you would get with the officer, you actually get 4 chicanery cards because he's such a kind of sneaky mastermind of a character. And at the start, you just get your usual 3 armory cards, but one of them is automatically a time bomb.
Aye, that's phenomenal.
The one kind of little tweak about that is normally for the time bombs, MD can call upon them on your side, but in this instance, only Creelman has access to it. So you can use it, but you can also use it to escape, which I think's fun.
Aye.
I like that, because I suppose my biggest criticism of the Creelman character is that he's got no evade, and to me would be quite slimy, but obviously they've covered that base by giving him this way off the table. He's also got the Feared by Muties ability, which is really useful. It's very similar to Styx. Spoiler alert, that's what we're going to talk about next. If you get them to within 8 inches of an enemy unit or enemy models, with the exception of Johnny Alpha, who doesn't fear him, then they've got to take a cool test, and if they fail it, they're pinned, which again, what you were just saying, it would break Overwatch and things like that. And if there's enemies who have weapons that are double action ones, that kind of messes things up for them as well, potentially. And that ability doesn't count as an action, by the way. That's just when he activates. If there's any muties within 8 inches of him, they've got to do this cool test, and they'll be pinned if they don't, and then he can just get on with his normal business. The way you would play the Creelers, as I say, their stats are basically all rounders, so you can adapt them to best deal with it, the challenge at hand, whether that's scenario, mission, or the enemies that you're facing. The one caveat I would say is that their weapons are all -1 at range, so the basic foot soldiers have only got to shoot 2. You will want to get them into 8-inch range to get that sweet spot to turn up the heat on the muties. And if they're accompanied, obviously if they're accompanied by Creelman, that ability, if they're at 8 inches anyway, will be pretty devastating towards mutant foes. I would definitely want to keep them at range if you were facing, close combat specialists like Wolf or Middenface. I know I'll keep mentioning the 2 of them, but they are the close combat specialists. And because they're modified shoot at range, you might consider taking an aim shot rather than 2 snapshots to try and boost your chances of hitting. But on the other hand, 2 snapshots, you've got 2 chances. It's totally up to you. So the one mod I've came up with them, because as I said, there's no real incentive for you to take the officers at all if you're fielding Creelman himself, is that basically I've come up with Creelman's personal entourage. And what that is that he picks an entourage of the finest and most fanatical Creelers to act as his bodyguards. They use the officer stats and they cost the same notoriety, so you can use that officer card. But there's one little tweak to them. Instead of having that equipped ability, they use the same, I think it's called various things, and depending on who it is, but basically the Lookout Johnny ability. The officers are the ones who will have that ability to swap places with crewmen to protect them because they're absolute fanatics and they will do anything to save them. So it's basically it is actually Wolf's ability really, because it's about him swapping places with Johnny in particular, and in this case they're swapping places with crewmen. So I just think it's a good way to get use out of those officer characters that, and you can get them all on the table, and I think pretty much works out about, maybe I've miscalculated, but I think I worked out roughly about 50 points if you had two sets of them all. So yeah, that's a good way to use them if you get the use out of both those characters. And it is costed. I did check this with all the rules in the book about the costings. So because all we're really doing is dropping out one ability and replacing it with another, it's the same notoriety and you can mess about with them. But yeah, just use them situationally really. Just respond to the scenario at hand. They can work at range and they can also... they're not great at close combat either. They're not really great at anything. Even Creelman and the officers are 3 across the board, basically, I think is pretty much what their stats are. So they're decent, but they're not exceptional at anything. But yeah, that time bomb is pretty handy.
Aye, that's brilliant. The thing is, with all the wee mods that you've just suggested there, you could have quite a good wee battle. If you're talking about it all comes in at about 50 notoriety, did you say?
I think so. Don't quote me on it.
Aye.
Hang on,
But you could have a kind of flashback, obviously, in the Muty War, because that was when they were primarily featured. I know some have appeared as mercenaries and that in further stories, but you could have Johnny even teaming up with the Weird Brothers, because in the Portrait of a Mutant storyline, when he takes in his hit squad, the Weird Brothers are part of it. Hiss and Cuss are part of it. So bizarrely, normally Hiss and Cuss are always enemies, and you could actually have Johnny teaming up with them here, because obviously it's before they became the bad guys that they became. And obviously you could throw in a couple more of the mutant generals even have arms, even though it goes against the actual story. You could utilise some of the mutant generals and have it that there was enough for a 50 notoriety game on either side. And I think you'd have quite an interesting wee clash there. I think it'd be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the cards again there, sorry. So the set comes with 3 basic Creelers, which are 3 each. So that's 9 for the 3 of them. You've got the officer who's 10 points, and then you've got Creelman who's 12 points, so that would be 19, 21, 31 just from the set that you get, but I've got 2 sets, so basically it would be the 19 times 2, 38, and then plus Creelman himself. So yeah, I've got 2 Creelman figures, although one's got darker hair, so it's not really Creelman. So I can effectively have some, replacement if I want to do that. But yeah, if you took 2 squads, basically 2 officers, 6 basic soldiers, and Creelman, that's a 50-point force, which is...
there'll be some fight that. It would be really good.
So yeah, that's a fun one. And last of all, to me, they're villains. Is Styx, the Styx characters. I love the Styx characters. Some of my favourite characters out of the whole thing, to be honest. What do you think of Styx?
Oh, I love Styx. But to me, I know he's been kind of, some would say maybe done to death, shall we say, because he continually pops up. However, in a new iteration, you're like, he's dead, but you're like, there's just so many of them. There's a whole planet of them in one of the later strips.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But the original Styx in the Schicklgruber Grab was phenomenal bad guy. And then the other 2 brothers that showed up in Outlaw, phenomenal. So to me, they are the original Styx. That 3. Even though I'm sure John and Allan, when they were coming up with the actual concept, it was maybe something that was added on, the idea of them having brothers potentially later on, because it's never mentioned that there's more than one Styx. But I just totally love, what I love about him is you're no completely sure about his mutation, just even his appearance. All right, he's got a strange look to him, but you don't really know what his mutation is, other than the fact he's kind of whenever you see the kind of colour versions of him, he's kind of got yellowish eyes, a bit almost like a version of Johnny. But see when you see it in the Schicklgruber Grab, him climbing down the walls and he's putting his hands right through the walls, and you're like, that's no right. he's just something no right about him. And I think it's actually reflected Intimidating, he's got height and strength, so it's +1 fight. So they've actually covered that in his mutations. But I think Dix is a great villain. Really, really good. Again, the gunfighter skill, the trademark long barrel and high power blaster, very, very strong. And with the intimidating skill that he's got as well, anybody within 8 inches, it's not even an action, I don't know, it's anybody within 8 inches needs to make a cool test.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare that for any opponent. And it's the fact it's not just pick a target, it's anyone that's in within that 8-inch arc. It's fantastic skill.
Yeah.
All right, it's off shot with a purposeful. He will never charge and he will never sprint.
I quite like that though, just because it flexes strap.
Because that's how he is.
Yeah.
He's a slow move, relentless enemy. Kind of almost like Terminator in a way.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of slow advance, completely confident in his abilities, sometimes overconfident as it plays out in the strips. But a great foil for Johnny Alpha, and basically any opponent that they're going up against. I think they're a great bad guy.
Yeah, and they've got the gunfighter as well. I mean, my personal preference is to use them that way because they do tend to be gunfighters in the strip. The one thing I suppose I was slightly surprised about was the fact that their shoot was 3. I know that Johnny does edge it. It seems to be most of the time when they kind of face off against each other. But I don't know. I just always had them down as a stat-wise, I would have had them as a 4 personally.
Maybe, aye.
The other thing to mention about them is that their fight is 4, which is really, really good. So
that's great. I was just about to cover that myself because, all right, it's +1 fight, but it's no free brackets +1 fight. They're 4 fights, so that means if they're thrown, obviously, a grenade weapon, they get the full benefit of that 4 stat.
Yep.
And then also it's like the fight stat is what's used for damage. So I think they're great. Really, really powerful. And plus they've still got evade 1. They've still been able to squeeze in the evade, and then they've also got the high resist 4. Very, very good.
Yeah, they're excellent characters, and I think they're suitably powerful. That's how I want them to be. I want them to be really powerful.
Aye.
And I try and get them on the board as often as I can because I just love those characters. Yeah, I think ideally, as I say, I like using them to shoot, but there's nothing wrong with getting them in amongst a close combat. And that intimidation, as you've covered, is really handy as well. So yeah, is there anything else you'd like to sneak in, Alan?
The one thing is probably the weirds, because even though they're Strontium dogs, they are primarily villains. So I love the weirds. I've loved the concept of the weirds right back at the strip. Again, the story with the Gronk Affair storyline with them really showing their true colours, how nasty they are, that they're prepared to lead a group of slavers to commit genocide on the Gronks who cannot fight back at all. It sets them up for fantastic bad guys who you're just really, really rooting that Johnny and Wolf are going to just wipe the floor of them. And that is basically what happens. But the fact of being included here is great. Just to see the 3 models working together on the table is great. His weird is by far the strongest. We have in the snake here is his mutation. He gives him the +1 fight in close combat. And again, it's great though because his fight is pretty poor for like throwing weapons. It's only 2, but with that wee +1, it gives him the extra boost that he would need in close combat. But he shoots pretty good. Free, but because he's a big sturdy guy, he's got resist 4, so very, very good. I love the fact he's a schemer as well. Gets the extra chicanery card, and he's got a high power blaster, so he's very, very good. Just looking at his double crosser one here.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Basically, if he injures a friendly mod, you'll get some extra bonus credits at the end of the game.
That is awesome. That is awesome. If you're playing like a campaign, that is brilliant. Cuss is pretty standard, still pretty good shoot. His blaster is only 3, but he's got 2 of them, so he could use a multiple weapons rule, but I personally don't tend to use that.
I'm the same.
But he's got the option. But he's got one quite good one here, Brotherly Bonds, and it basically, Cuss has no problems ordering Silent around. When Cuss activates, he can remove any chip from a Silent Weird and put it back into the bag, which is similar like Boobo with the Bad Boys. But it's a nice wee skill, thematic skill, because he's always bossing Silent about, battering them, and it really goes great with the actual theme of the characters. I love his mutation. It's just ugly snaker. Cosmetic, no effect. Brilliant. And then, of course, we've got Silent, the immortal Silent Weird, who is just the most pathetic guy ever.
Yeah.
But it is, he's won notoriety. It's fantastic.
Yeah, he's just
Move 4, shoot 1, fight 1, no evade, resist 2, and cool 1. Phenomenal. Because it is just like the guy. It's just like him. But the fact he can't do any double actions because he's got no features. But the rules for the no features, he's never pinned. So, I mean, it could be bonuses in that, I suppose. But the thing is, with him, if you get him in close enough, he still might do some damage because he's got that, he's still got a gun and a basic hand blaster. All right, his power's only 3. But he's got that wee +1 bonus if you get him in close enough. So he could still do some damage using that, the combination of cuss, potentially using the brotherly bonds and getting his chip returned to the bag. I mean, there is potential there. But to me, you've got to use them as a full unit to get the best benefit out of these guys.
He counts as a point. So, and it's a chip in the bag. That's the way I look at it for Silent. And the Fly's Eyes Wagner is the other one who's a kind of bit of a dubious Strontium dog.
Aye, because he was a Strontium dog, killed his partner and then promptly got a price in his head because of it. But Fly's Eyes, I think, is great. Obviously, gunfighter skill. He's quality hand blaster. You've got to get him in close because it's a repeater function he's got. So he's a +2 for short range, but he's a -2 for the long range. But what's good about him is he's got the equipped, so he gets extra armoury cards.
Aye, an extra one, yep.
Aye, an extra one, yeah. Alright, he's got the Fly's Eyes, which gives him a +1 bonus to his evade, so he's got 2 evade. However, if he's stunned or injured by any attack, he also gains a pin marker as well, which I think I forgot to do that a couple of times, to be honest with you, but that is a bit dodgy, to be honest with you.
It's a big problem for him because he's got Gunfighter in it. It means if he gets stunned or injured, that Gunfighter's pretty useless, which is a bit of a shame. So he is one of those characters where I would be more inclined to go for broke, even though it's a 50-50, just because I don't feel the Gunfighter's that likely to. As soon as he's stunned or injured, that Gunfighter's out of the equations.
Aye, it's definitely something that won't really benefit him if he's got multiple guys shooting at him or an opponent with any skill shooting at him. So I would be the same. I would probably utilise go for broke as often as I could with him.
Yeah, does have a good resist though, so.
His resist's good. So I love the character purely for the thematic side of it. But it's so much. I just love this entire game because they've picked. I would love to see them do loads and loads more of the villains and more releases. Please, Warlord, please, if you're listening to this, do some more Strontium Dog releases. But what they have done, they have picked the cream of the crop. And even though the whole cast of the official killing, there'd be so much that could be done there.
Yeah, I'd like that as well.
Oh, it'd be brilliant. There's so many.
In fact, I think Gav Thorpe said that when he was on last year. He would quite like to see an expansion for the killing and have all those characters. So yeah, I would throw in with that as well. That would be my ideal.
But the ones that they've picked, I must admit, they're all excellent. All really, really good. And as soon as I picked up the rule book and was looking through it and seen what was coming, because obviously at that stage you only had the first wave and the actual figures you get in the box, I was like, oh, this is going to be brilliant, the amount of guys that was going to get released. Two that I would also love to see, purely because they're mentioned in the rule book, is Big Cynthia and Armstrong Jones. They're under the Slaphead character, another potentially dodgy Strontium dog. But Slaphead, it's just known associates, and there's a wee bit that's mentioned, and it just says Big Cynthia and Armstrong Jones, which I've always felt odd because I thought every other known associate that's mentioned has got a model, and they felt the need to mention them. So I've actually thought that maybe they're planning to release them at some point in the future, which maybe hasn't happened, but who knows? It's maybe only my perception of that. But again, we can cover Slaphead as part of the Strontium Dogs next time, I suppose.
Excellent. And I hope everybody that's listening has enjoyed that little talk through some of the more notorious characters in the Strontium Dog universe, and hopefully that helps give you some ideas about how you best play them. We will have another episode coming up to once your campaign of the killing concludes, Alan, talking about the heroes.
Aye.
Obviously Johnny Alpha and Wolf is going to be covered in that, and Middenface and all your favourites. So that's something to look forward to. When this episode's broadcast, it's coinciding. Normally this would be a week where we would have a full bout of the killing, but we've just got a little short
Aye.
showing the carnage so far. Very short, but normal service will resume in another 2 weeks with another full episode, and really that'll be into the backstreet, running towards the end of the killing. So still quite a few episodes to come, and yeah, the Heroes episode will follow that. So thanks for joining me today, Alan, and sharing your thoughts about all the different miniatures and their skills and all that, and that was good fun. Yeah, we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, that was great. Pleasure as always.
So all that's coming up on the channel. Also some other 2000 AD gaming. I'll be doing some other little bits and pieces here, so watch out for some of that. And until next time, keep on living the life of Die.